Mr. Deputy President, properly inspired, brief but fiery. I must thank my colleague senators for their contributions to this motion. And I now wish to respond and provide some further explanations that perhaps did not stick when I first presented the motion, for the benefit of all concerned, particularly the opposition. First of all, Madam Mr. Deputy President, I want to re-emphasize that this morning, when this motion was presented, it was a motion to authorize sourcing funds to support the youth economy. And for some time today, I was listening to the presentations that were made, and I was wondering whether we are still debating that particular motion. So I had some difficulty trying to follow the discussion, but I was able to, at some point, formulate a few responses. First of all, I want to agree with Senator Daniel, who made a point that the opposition finds a way, no matter what the issue is, and he used the word diss, to really diss anything that we put on the table, good, bad, or ugly. Just finds a way to say it's not good. And when the opposition cannot find fault with the issue or the motion, if it is a motion that is so clear and so prudent and so straightforward that it is so obvious that it is good for the country, then, as was done by the leader of opposition business, they attempt to claim it. Oh, it was our idea. So the opposition, first of all, with the leader's presentation, he started off, and by the way, he used his entire period of time. It was interesting to see a member of the Senate use an entire presentation, exhausted every single second. And by the time he was finished, there was nothing substantial that I could have gathered from that presentation. So, Mr. Deputy President, it was at the start of the presentation of the youth economy debate, the leader of opposition business tried to claim the idea. Oh, this is not new. This was something that we were doing, and credited the former Minister for Commerce. Then he got lost in that argument, because clearly that argument was not logical, and so he took a swipe at the independent senator. Very unusual for that to happen in this house, accusing him of supporting the government. And then he got lost again, and then moved to try to mimic Jamaica, a whole long lecture about the politics of Jamaica, and quite hypocritically talking about continuing a shared vision, which is the direct opposite of what his government did when they came into office, abandoned every policy that the Labour Party had suggested. So from claiming the idea, this going after the independent senator, then he went and tried to discuss Jamaica politics, got lost, then went after the vaccine money. How could you come to this Senate? We're debating a youth economy motion, and you introduce. Now, I was tempted to stand on a point of order, Mr. Deputy, to indicate that he was violating a standing order that refers to introducing ideas or information that is not relevant. But 37.1, I let it go, because all it does is just gives me content to deal with. To suggest that you want to bring in vaccines into the debate when the vaccines tag is on your forehead.
That's it.
You are the one who went about doing this vaccines deal. It was not us. And then you bring the vaccine in. So that did not work, because we didn't take it on. And so it then became the UWP made one mistake in the last elections, and that they did not shout loud enough. So I was thinking, okay, they did not shout loud enough. Maybe that is true, Mr. Deputy. Or maybe what they were shouting out so loudly, instead of shouting out on things that were relevant to the people, they were probably shouting out Pomandu. I don't know, maybe they were shouting out DSH. And the Pearl of the Caribbean. Maybe they were shouting out CHTTI. Maybe the opposition was shouting out Jack Lam. Maybe they were shouting out Range. And I remember the minister then, he was then the Minister for Tourism, explaining a net gain after we have had to pay back investment monies to an investor because they faltered on the investment. He was boasting about having a net gain. How could you have a net gain when you have to pay back? So maybe these are the things that the government was shouting out so loudly that, and by the way, not forgetting the insults that were being shouted out at the people of this country. And therefore, I think the opposition has learned the lesson that when you are shouting out, do what we are doing now. Let us shout out on the achievements of our government and what we are doing for the people. Let us shout out about the benefits of the youth economy to the young people of this country and how they can become entrepreneurs and how they can develop and grow their own wealth. Let us shout that out. Let's stop shouting out insults and abuse and all kinds of things about people's character and personalizing those things. That is not what we are here to shout out. So, Mr. Deputy President, again, the leader of opposition business got lost in that discussion. And so he attempted to do one of his favorite moves. Picked up the Social and Economic Review, forgetting that we too have a copy. He has done that so many times. And decided to make a comparison of figures. So I take you to the page, Mr. Deputy President, that he quoted. Page 110. And he referred to a table. And the table he referred to was table 31. In his attempt to make it appear as if under his government's watch, unemployment among youth had declined so well, he quoted selectively from the table. But permit me, Mr. Deputy President, to refer to that very same table. Table 31, 2015 youth unemployment rate. He was very happy to quote that it was 40%. It's actually 41, yes, 41%. And then he jumped to, he didn't mention 2016, 2017, 2018. He jumped to 2019. And he said it moved from 41% to 30% in 2019, 31.6. But Mr. Deputy President, what happened to 2017 under his government's watch? No COVID. What happened to 2018 under his government's watch? No COVID. There was a gradual decline. For some reason I would have said that if I were he, because it showed 38.4 in 2016, 38.5. So there was already a decline in 2016 when we were still in government and they assumed the reins of government. So there was a decline. Then we went to jumped to 2019 to make a point. But Mr. Deputy President, let's go to 2020, COVID, we can explain maybe. 2021, 37.07. From 31, there was a jump. But you see, I am not afraid to say what it is. I am giving the full picture. I'm not hiding statistics.
That's right.
Why do you have to hide it? You could have explained that, okay, there was an increase in unemployment, but perhaps it was due to COVID. But you decide not to mention it at all. We have to stop playing these games, Mr. Deputy. The document is available to us. If you want to make a point, quote the information correctly. But here is what he did not see. And I want to make sure that this is said. Let us now look at the figures for 2022. And I kept telling him, when he started with this quoting, I kept telling him, state the figures. You start with 2015. That was while we were in government, the Labour Party. And you quote 40%. But you do not, or you refuse to refer to the 2022 figures now that the Labour Party is back in government. And it has dropped to 26.9%. Somehow the leader of opposition business refused to see that in that same table there is a 26.9%, representing a drop of almost 14%.
Mr. President, I stand on a point of order.
Sorry, Senator Fede, what's your point of order?
The leader of government business is misleading the House by suggesting that I'm trying to hide the statistics. I have indicated in my presentation that 2022 reduced to that I cannot use the 26.9 in 2022 because the methodology has changed. And I did state that. And when I was stating so, the same member, Senator Jean, said, oh, we know that already. So the reason why it cannot be compared and used in the preceding years is because the methodology for measuring employment and all the other indicators in the main labor service survey, the labor force indicators, is because the methodology has changed. We're now using the ILO methodology, and going forward, this will be a base year to measure it going forward.
So, Deputy, is he elucidating? I did not into that.
Well, sorry, he indicated that you were mischaracterizing what he had said. I do believe he did mention the year 2022. He didn't quote the figures, but he did say that he couldn't rely on it because of the change in methodology.
In that case, Mr. Deputy President, I was absolutely correct, because I never said that he interpreted. I said he did not mention 2022 figures. That's what I said. And exactly what you said, Mr. Deputy. He did not mention the 2022 figures. These were my exact words. And when the opposition, leader of opposition business, pretends to be standing on a point of order, to stand on a point of elucidation, to try to explain, he needs to state that he's standing on a point of elucidation and allow me to yield. Because he's again playing tricks. He's standing on a point of order, but he really wants to elucidate. Mr. Deputy President, I was not suggesting that 2022 was not in the discussion, but he did not quote the figures. So he's now standing to try to explain that is a different methodology. He was, Mr. Deputy. He was hiding the figures because he didn't quote them.
Let's move on to the point. Sorry,
point of order.
Thank you.
The members cannot accuse me of hiding the figures.
Yes, Senator. I understand.
Mr. President, that is a gross misrepresentation of the facts of what happened. So, for political reasons, the member cannot...
Senator, thank you.
He cannot ascribe that to me.
Thank you. And he is correct. He did mention why he was not going to quote the figures. I don't think it is fair to say that he was hiding the figure. So if you want to make a point, you can make a point in relation to the specific figure, but I don't think you can accuse the senator of hiding the figure.
Mr. Deputy, unlike the senator, I will not disobey your ruling, because I heard you ask him to stop and he went on. I will just repeat that the senator did not quote the figures. I'll say no more. So that, Mr. Deputy, back to the argument on the trend of the pattern of behavior by the opposition. Having moved away into 6 different directions on the same debate and not finding his bearings, he then jumped to village tourism. You know, we're talking about youth economy, a motion to finance the youth economy. We start with my idea in Jamaica politics, vaccines, money, and all kinds of things, just convoluted. I don't know how you can have a presentation like that. And I must say, Mr. Deputy, you give a lot of latitude today, I must say. But then it was village tourism. So village tourism became the focus of the debate. But Mr. Deputy, at that point, the opposition leader of opposition business attempted to suggest that his government built an hotel. And when it was challenged, again, you know, as slippery as he is, he said, well, it was a 90% complete project. And then he said they completed 10 rooms. 10 rooms.
Excuse me. Members, you address the chair, not each other. It's getting a little out of hand this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This thing flying across there is a little distracting. So, again, did you build a hotel? Did you have a 90% complete, or did you build 10 rooms? What is it?
What is it?
All 3 of these statements were made in the same argument by the same individual. So, Mr. Deputy President, again, unfounded, all over the place, convoluted, things that you cannot logically follow are happening just to show that you do not support or an attempt to, as was mentioned by my colleague, an initiative that is in the interest of the young people of this country. So, Mr. Deputy, there was an attempt at the end to, I would think, undermine some of the work that is being done by the current parliamentary rep. And I want to say, it seems that the leader of opposition business has not realized that the parliamentary representative for Ansari Canaries is the Honorable Wayne Girard. He is a tall gentleman, very tall, taller than me,
The goalpost shifting.
by the name of Honorable Wayne Girard. And I saw an attempt by the leader of opposition business, instead of speaking to the motion, to try to talk about his achievements in Ansari Canaries. But I thought that instead of all that happened, that should have happened during the tenure of his government and during the campaign to convince the people of Ansari Canaries to return him to office. But it is now the parliament, it is now the constituency that is represented by someone else. And so I would like to advise that the leader of opposition business sticks to the debate and sticks to the motions in front of us, and not to try to use this platform to try to, talk about the projects that he claims to have completed, that up to this point moved from building a hotel 90% complete and then 10 rooms. So, Mr. Deputy President, all we had this morning was a charade that really did not do justice to the motion. Now, I think Senator Shalry used some concrete examples of how this Youth Economy Agency facility, how it really has worked, and she used some examples of real people giving real experiences, and I thought that was very instructive, because that is the only way you can know if a government initiative is working. You ask the people, you listen to their response, and you observe their reaction, and then you know. So I think it is very clear that based on the accounts that she gave, there is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that so far our young people are benefiting and are happy with what is being delivered. So, Mr. Deputy President, I want to tell you that these initiatives are not being done in isolation. Now, you see, one of the members just returned, but you're distracting me. Mr. Deputy President, this initiative, the youth economy concept, is not in a vacuum by itself. Earlier on in my first presentation, I hinted, and I think more than hinted, that it is being complemented by the small, medium, and micro enterprise program where $10 million was invested. I also can mention, as was mentioned by my colleague senators, that there are several other government initiatives that are providing support for various sections of the population. For teachers, Senator Jawahir was speaking about it. Senator Tousse gave you the examples. Senator Jean had a very detailed discussion on the various technicalities on how the loans are financed. And I think also Senator Daniel also gave a very philosophical explanation on why it is important for some of those ideas to come together. I want to also remind the opposition that to complement some of these initiatives, that the government's overall policy of facilitating growth in this country and making it easier for people includes something that I think he has probably not heard and has not remembered. For a very long time in this Senate, the honorable member has been asking the government about his $1,500, his $1,500. Up to the point where I was telling him, why is he so fixated on that $1,500 that he claimed the Prime Minister promised? I don't know if it was only him. and the Prime Minister has explained what he said. But apparently, the $1,500 statement was raised in the lower chamber, where the Minister for Equity announced that 5,000 St. Lucians, I don't know if he's among that 5,000, 5,000 St. Lucians will be receiving as of next month $1,500 as part of the COVID support. And this is one of the initiatives that is complementing policies like the youth economy, policies like the SMME, policies like the laptop program, policies like the 80+, where you try to ensure that every sector of the population has some kind of benefit, has some kind of, is receiving some kind of support from the government policies. And this money is not going to be taken from our NIC funds. I am pleased to inform. So all that time, my colleague has been asking for the 1,500. The 1,500 was raised, and I heard nothing. Nothing. And so you know how convenient it is to not hear when things that you ask for or you talk about are being dealt with. So I look forward to the benefit of that particular initiative by the government to complement the youth economy, the SMME, and many other initiatives that are still to come to bring relief, to create employment, to empower our people in this country, and to diversify our economy. So, Mr. Deputy President, I am very excited about this. I really believe that there are lessons to be learnt from this. And while the leader of opposition business was so fixated on trying to make an initiative look bad and talking about what kind of village tourism was and what names we changed and what hotels they built, I just want to ask one little question before I end. Is the village tourism he was talking about connected to or had anything to do with the lights on the Jack Mel playing field? Now he referred to me. I was sitting there in my little chair, minding my business, and he provoked me. I didn't say anything. He referred to me as a parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. So, as a parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, since he was throwing it at me about, you can check in Anstore and the projects, but there is a project, and I can speak on it because it's in the ministry where I am, where Jack Mel playing field, lighting under village tourism. Now, you see, so I don't know if there's a hotel on the Jack Mel playing field. But Mr. Deputy President, I will not go too far on this thing. I just thought I should mention it and ask the question and hope that the answers will come sooner than later.
Be quiet.
Because sometimes when sleeping, when certain people are minding their business, do not provoke them. So, Madam, Mr. Deputy, I want to end here and say that I give my full support and I thank members who did to this motion, and as always, as a comprehensive part of a comprehensive plan by this government to diversify this economy and give young people a chance to become owners of their own businesses, charter their own destiny, and accumulate and generate wealth and prosperity in our beautiful country. I thank you, Mr. Deputy.